Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lose It podcast. This podcast is tailor-made for those of you with weight to lose, those of you that are losing weight now, and those of you that are already bathing in the success and the accomplishment of your weight loss achievement. If it's your first time tuning into the podcast, thank you for being here. I'm your host, Nick Geoppo, and 5 years ago, I lost 110 pounds and have kept it off after a lifetime of gaining and losing weight. This is episode 12, and we are 3 months into podcasting. I can't believe how fast that has gone. In today's episode, we're talking about all of the diets I ever tried and what I learned from each of those diets, what worked for me and what didn't work for me, and what you can learn about navigating diet culture that can help you lose the weight that you want to lose and actually sustain your results. This community, the Lose It community, is not about losing weight as fast as possible. We're not out here to teach you how to lose 30 pounds in 2 months just to get a cool before and after picture. We are here to teach you the lessons that you need to have a healthy relationship with food and with exercise, and to have a healthy mindset that is sustainable over the course of your life so that food doesn't run your life anymore. This is episode 12, all the diets I ever tried. So I gained and lost weight every year, at least 50 pounds from ages 18 to 24. And then when I was 24, I lost about 75 pounds in 6 months. And then in the couple years following that, 25 and 26, I lost another about 40 pounds. Here I am now as a 29-year-old. So it's been 5 years since I have maintained my weight loss after gaining and losing weight for basically 6 consecutive years through high school and college. And I tried a lot of different diets. So when I would lose weight really fast. I'd drop 50 pounds in 2 or 3 months sometimes. And it was because I was doing these extreme diets that I would now call fad diets. And I was really under-eating. And I fell so in love, maybe you relate to this, I fell so in love with the idea of losing weight. It was intoxicating. Losing weight is an intoxicating feeling when you walk into a room of people that you haven't seen for 2 or 3 months and you've lost 30 or 40 pounds and everyone goes, "What the fuck? You look really good. What happened? What are you on? What are you doing? What are you eating? What's your diet plan? Oh my God, what kind of workouts are you doing?" You just feel like the fucking man or the fucking woman that is losing all this weight and gaining all this attention. That's kind of an addicting feeling, right? Because it's self-improvement that is very external. Everyone can see it. It's like making a lot of money and then buying a new car. Everyone can see that you have the money to live in this new house or to buy this new flashy sports car. That's what weight loss feels like. It's showing other people and getting approval from other people for the work that you have done on yourself. It's very external, and that can be a very addicting feeling. So I got really hooked on that. And I would, for 8 or 9 months out of the year, I would just overeat and eat what I'm calling mindlessly. I would just eat bullshit, whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. And then come summertime, it would be nice outside, and I'd get really active, and I would start going on different diets to lose weight. One of the diets that I tried was keto. And keto, to simplify it, is really just cutting out carbs. Now, technically, keto isn't just no carbs. It's actually maintaining a very delicate balance of fats and proteins. So most people that try keto are not actually properly balancing their fats and proteins to maintain a state of ketosis, which is really the whole point. But I went keto, which meant I just ate no carbs. So no rice, no potatoes, no bread, no fruits. Nothing carb related. And what's really interesting about the keto diet is it actually wasn't initially created as a weight loss diet. It was initially created as a diet to help people cure diseases in their own bodies. And it became a weight loss thing because a lot of the patients lost weight because they were eating less carbs. And typically people that cut out an entire food group like carbs eat less calories. You don't lose weight because you're eating less carbs. You might lose some water weight, but you're losing weight because you're eating less calories. So people that go on keto and then just fill the calories that they're dropping from carbs with other foods like proteins or fats are not going to lose weight. People on keto lose weight because they eat less calories. So I went on keto, and I was not strict on keto. I'd be really good on keto for a few days at a time, and then I would cheat on the weekends, and then I would restrict on the weekdays, and I would just eat, meat, and that was really it. Meat, some dairy products, cheeses, just no carbs at all. And then the weekend would come, and I'd go, I really deserve some ice cream. So I'd tell myself I was just going to have just a little bit of ice cream, because if I ate some carbs and not a lot, then I would still be in this state of ketosis, which I thought was the thing that was melting the fat off of me. But in hindsight, looking back, I was actually just losing weight at a really rapid rate because I was starving myself and under-eating on keto. But my experience with keto is that it is an all-or-nothing diet. And I've talked about this quite a few times, but if you're new, I'll say it again. All-or-nothing diets that cut out entire food groups or entire anything, are not sustainable for people that have unhealthy relationships with food. The reason why keto works so well and is so famous in the weight loss industry and is sold so widely is because when you cut out carbs, you lose a lot of weight. The problem is that when you cut out carbs, you're just giving power to carbs. You're saying, I don't have a way, there's no way that I can have balance with carbs, so I'm just going to not eat them. And what that does is creates a relationship where you start seeing carbs as bad. So now you see carbs as bad. And I saw carbs as bad. So when I saw carbs as bad, I didn't want to go out with my friends because I didn't want to be in areas where I would be seeing carbs and be having to practice self-control everywhere that I went. I wouldn't want to go out with my friends for dinner to get a pizza or a drink because what am I going to eat? What am I going to drink? It was a very restrictive diet that really negatively impacted my lifestyle, and I became extremely obsessive about being on keto. And in hindsight, I was never really even in ketosis, which is the whole point of being on the keto diet, because I never stuck with really strict for more than a few days before I would just quit. But in those few days, in those cycles of a few days on, 1 day off, a few days on, 1 day off, in those few days, I would lose so much more weight than I would gain in my couple days off. So it was 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. And that over the course of 2 or 3 months would yield me losing about 50 pounds because I was just starving myself for a few days at a time. Keto is very unsustainable for me, and I strongly recommend, I realized after years of trying these different diets, that the way to lose weight is to find a diet for you that is sustainable over the course of your life. Keto might work for you. Keto might be something that you can sustain and that really actually fits with your lifestyle. You're not in a position where you go out very often, you cook most of your meals at home, or your family cooks most of your meals at home, and you don't eat a lot of carbs already. It's not going to negatively impact your lifestyle. If that's the case, try it. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. It didn't work for me, but I'm still glad that I tried because I learned a lot about my relationship with food. Don't be afraid to fail. No diet is inherently good or bad. The word diet isn't even the right fucking word to use. No food or meal plan is good or bad. It's just what works for you and your goals. And keto did not work for me. That doesn't mean that it won't work for you. The next one that I had a real love-hate relationship with is intermittent fasting. And it's funny because intermittent fasting wasn't really popular until like 2019 or 2020. And I did a whole different podcast episode on this. So check it out if you want to hear a little more. But when intermittent fasting became popular, it was like all the people that never ate breakfast that were told their whole lives that breakfast was the best meal of the day and the most important meal, and they just chose not to eat it because they didn't want to. They all of a sudden were like, oh my God, I've been intermittently fasting my whole life, like they were some kind of health nut, and like they knew that breakfast wasn't good for them. That wasn't really the case. Intermittent fasting, I learned so much. This was the most important diet that I ever went on in terms of developing a healthy relationship with food. When I started intermittent fasting, for me, it started with just not eating breakfast. So I would just eat lunch and dinner. And the idea was that by skipping an entire meal, you eat less calories. And that it makes a lot of sense. This actually works for a lot of people. For a lot of people, I know a lot of people that have very healthy relationships with food that still intermittently fast to this day. I know people that did not have healthy relationships with food that developed healthy relationships with food through intermittent fasting. So I do not have bad things to say about intermittent fasting when it comes to the masses. For me personally, I started intermittent fasting just eating lunch and dinner with the idea of eating less calories to sustain my weight loss. So I did this when I was 24 after I had already lost all my weight. And what I realized was by the time I would get to lunch, let's say I was eating 2,000 calories a day. And let's say I was eating about 700 calories breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so 2,100 calories a day. What I was doing was just taking my full day's worth of calories and just splitting them in two. So I would just eat half of my calories for lunch, half of my calories for dinner, but I was still eating about the same amount. So by cutting out breakfast, it just made my lunches and my dinners bigger, and I noticed that I wasn't really losing weight the way, or maintaining my weight loss the way that I wanted to. So what I ended up doing was going to OMAD, OMAD, 1 meal a day, which is also technically intermittent fasting. But instead of doing the whole 16-8, which is probably something that you've heard, where you eat in an 8-hour window and fast for 16, it's basically 23-1. So you eat for about an hour a day and you fast for 23 hours. And going from standard 16-8 intermittent fasting to 23-1 OMAD intermittent fasting is a natural transition for some people, and it works really well for them. I took it way too far, and I'm someone that goes a little hard on things sometimes and gets too into them. And I got way too into the idea of intermittent fasting, to the point where I was just eating 1 meal a day. And through eating that 1 meal a day, I found myself developing a binge eating disorder, where I never purged. I was never making myself throw up or get sick or anything like that, but I would eat 5,000 or 6,000 calories at a time for dinner. And it was all fast food, junk, bullshit. But I just developed such an unhealthy relationship with food. I already had one, but it got substantially worse at this time about 5 years ago when I started doing OMAD, because I would get so hungry. I would get so hungry by the time that I was ready to eat that I would just eat everything. And I would eat the food faster than my body would tell me to slow the fuck down and take a breath. And I started developing real binge eating issue, where I would eat massive meals and then crash afterwards and just lay down for hours, sleep for 12 hours at a time, and then wake up with a gnarly food hangover, and then tell myself that I didn't want to eat breakfast or lunch again because I felt like such shit. And then by the time dinner would come, my body would be starving again. So I would eat another massive meal. Intermittent fasting for me led to a binge eating issue. That's not very common. Again, a lot of people have a lot of success with intermittent fasting. I have found that my body feels the best and my energy levels are very well sustained when I eat a small breakfast and a medium-sized lunch and a larger dinner. That's what I do now. So I do not intermittently fast, but I still eat the majority of my calories for dinner and eat small breakfasts right when I wake up. So don't knock intermittent fasting until you try it. I strongly recommend giving it a go. It works for a lot of people. It might not work for you if you have an unhealthy relationship with food, but give yourself permission to try and fail. I gave myself permission to try. I started having a binge eating issue. I recognized the issue. I rectified the issue, and I fixed it. Believe in yourself that if something goes wrong and you choose the wrong path, that you're going to navigate yourself back on a path that is sustainable for you. And intermittent fasting is sustainable for a lot of people. The next diet I tried was gluten-free. This was a long time ago. Maybe I was 21 or 22 when I was still fat as fuck. And I thought that if I just cut out gluten that I would lose weight. At this time, I didn't know anything about losing weight at all. I was just Googling different diets and I came across gluten-free. And another one that I tried too was going vegetarian. That lasted about 5 days. But gluten-free was maybe 1 or 2 weeks. What I realized through trying these diets is just because you were gluten-free doesn't mean that you're healthy. I was gluten-free eating full pints of ice cream and gluten-free pizzas. Being gluten-free doesn't mean anything. Gluten might be irritating to your body. A lot of studies say that gluten is pretty bad for your overall health, but cutting out gluten and substituting it with fucking ice cream and substituting it with gluten-free pizzas isn't necessarily healthier. You can be gluten-free and go get French fries from McDonald's and dip them in ranch and you can still eat a bunch of shit. You can be gluten-free and go get a cheeseburger with no bun and get 3 burgers with no buns, a Big Mac with no bun from McDonald's. It's still not really good for you, right? I found gluten-free when I was intentionally gluten-free and just substituting it with other shit, didn't really do anything. That was a real waste of time for me. The other one was the chicken and rice diet. Anyone that has ever tried to lose a lot of weight has probably gone on the chicken and rice diet. And this was probably my most common diet when it came to, I did this for 2 or 3 different summers, 2 or 3 different cycles of gaining and losing about 50 pounds. What's great about the chicken and rice diet is it's really easy. You can cook, the chicken, rice, and broccoli diet. You can cook chicken, rice, and broccoli very easily in just microwave rice with frozen broccoli. And I would get chicken from delis at grocery stores, like roasted chickens, and then just rip them apart. And quick, cheap, easy. You get some good protein from the chicken, but really hard to get enough calories. So the chicken, rice, and broccoli diet is really just a starvation diet. It's like any other starvation diet. It's hard to get enough calories unless you're eating a lot of rice, which I wasn't. I was mostly just eating chicken and broccoli with a little bit of rice on the side. The problem with diets like this is they're so damn restrictive. And when you get into these really restrictive diets where I only eat these foods because this is all that, because this is what my diet consists of. I'm only eating chicken, rice, and broccoli because that's all that fits into my diet. It just ruins your social life, and it ruins your relationship with food, and it makes you afraid of food, and it makes it so you don't want to go places because of specific foods, and it makes it so you don't want to open the fridge because you don't want to see the other foods, and then you start feeling temptation from other foods that aren't chicken, rice, and broccoli. It's just a really easy way to develop an all-or-nothing diet around food, and all-or-nothing diets do not work. All or nothing, anything related to food does not work for people that already have unhealthy relationships with food the way that I did. The diet that I settled on, that I saw the most sustainable success with for years, that I strongly recommend you try, is one called the Common Sense Diet. The Common Sense Diet. Now, a lot of people online, a lot of people in the nutrition and exercise space, people in the eating disorder space, don't want to say that certain foods are good and certain foods are bad because they don't want to demonize the foods. But the reality is that certain foods are good for you and certain foods are bad for you. And I say that knowing that I am not afraid of food. I know that Ben & Jerry's ice cream is bad for me, yet I still sometimes eat it and I don't feel guilt. I know that alcohol is bad for me, yet I sometimes still have a drink of alcohol and I don't feel guilt. The same thing goes for food. Just because food is bad for you and you know that it's bad for you doesn't mean that you can't ever eat it. The same way that it doesn't mean you can't ever go to happy hour knowing that you're poisoning yourself with alcohol. It's the same fucking thing. Certain foods are good for you, certain foods are bad for you. Only eating foods that are good for you all the time is a really easy way to develop an unhealthy relationship with foods that are bad for you, because if you never have them in your diet, you can never exercise control over them. So then when you get around them, you may binge them or feel uncomfortable or obsess about them. So the key here is balance. And that's what the Common Sense Diet is all about. The Common Sense Diet is eat more of the foods that you know are good for you, that make your body feel good, and less of the foods that you know are bad for you, that make your body feel bad. So let's play a little game here. And this is the sort of game that I would play with myself just to reinforce the relationship that I want to have with food. Skittles. Are Skittles good for you or bad for you? You know that they're bad for you. Does that mean you can't ever eat Skittles? No, it doesn't mean that. It just means that Skittles shouldn't be a part of your diet every day. Fruit and vegetables. Are fruit and vegetables just comments, not in your specific, don't get too specific with it. Just in general, are fruits and vegetables good for you or bad for you? We all know they're good for you. The Common Sense Diet says I should eat a little bit more fruit and vegetables than I should Skittles. Common Sense Diet, right? Ask yourself, different foods. Is Domino's pizza good or bad for you? It's bad for you. That doesn't mean you can't have a piece. And if you do have a piece or two or three, that doesn't mean you have to feel bad about it. But it shouldn't be a primary part of your diet, right? Is meat and rice good for you? Common sense, they're good for you. If you go on ChatGPT, if you don't know which foods are good for you and which ones are bad for you, and you're going to hear some sirens going by here by my apartment. So pardon the noise there. If you don't know which foods are good for you and which foods are bad for you, focus on which foods make you feel good when you eat them. This is the key to the Common Sense Diet. It's not just using common sense from other people. Use the common sense in your own body. So here's how you can discern. You can ask ChatGPT which foods are more nutritious. Are Skittles very nutritious? ChatGPT will tell you probably not. Are meats and fruits and vegetables very nutritious? ChatGPT will tell you yes. Common Sense Diet. Eat better, nutritious, whole foods whenever you can, but you don't always have to, and maybe you shouldn't always. But the common sense diet really focuses on how specific foods make you feel after you eat them. And this is something that people are asking me a lot online right now. How do I tell which foods make me feel good? How do I feel connected to my food? Close your eyes and imagine eating half of a Domino's pizza and a bag of Skittles. And then just imagine how you move and how you feel energetically 30 minutes after that. Are you tired? Are you awake? Do you feel like you can get good work done? Do you feel like you can go on a walk or hold a quality conversation with a stranger 30 minutes after eating all that food? Now, ask yourself, if you ate an apple and a cup of blueberries with some chicken and some rice, how do you feel? Can you go on a walk? Can you hold a conversation with a stranger? Can you think straight? Can you work efficiently? Yes, you can. You can. And that's what the common sense diet is all about. Which foods make you feel good and which foods make you feel bad. And this is the most sustainable way to eat. This is what I teach to my clients one-on-one all the time. How are we going to build your common sense diet? Which foods work for you? Which foods make you feel good and which foods make you feel bad? Let's eat more of the foods that make us feel good. Your body doesn't want to be fat. Your body does not want to be fat. And if you fuel it properly, you will lose weight. If you fuel your body with the foods that make your body feel good, not just your head, but your body actually feel good, you will lose weight. Your body does not want to hold on to that weight. Your body is not stubborn. Your body will drop weight fast if you only ate foods that made you feel good. That's not reality. Sometimes we're going to eat bullshit. But you owe it to yourself to eat more of the foods that make you feel good. So here's how I eat today. And this is how I've been eating for about a year. And I'm 5 years into this journey after losing weight. I'm about 11 years into this journey of having an unhealthy relationship with food. I finished losing weight about 5 years ago for the last time, and I would say I've had a healthy relationship with food for the last 3 years. So even after losing weight, it took me about 2 years to develop what I'm now calling a healthy relationship with food. The way I did it to the common sense diet. My common sense diet consists of being gluten-free unintentionally. So I don't say that I'm gluten-free. I just don't eat gluten very regularly. But it's unintentional. And it's unintentional because when I think about the foods that make me feel bad, it's like bread, pizza, deep fried chicken strips, and all those things have gluten in them. When I think about the foods that make me feel good for breakfast, this is my breakfast that I eat every day. It's 1 cup of non-fat Greek yogurt. I'll do a tablespoon of cacao powder. Sometimes I'll do a half scoop of protein powder, not all the time. It just depends on what I'm doing that day. I'll throw in a half cup of blueberries and a half cup of raspberries. And then I will do either a tablespoon of organic honey or a tablespoon of dark organic maple syrup. I don't know the macros on that. I think it's about 400 calories. With the protein powder, it's about 40 grams of protein. And I get my fruit. I get energy from my fruit. And I get natural sugar from the organic maple syrup and the honey that makes me feel really good with no crash. And I get protein from the Greek yogurt. And I get flavor from the cacao powder and fiber from the cacao powder. Very balanced meal that is like a dessert, and it actually gives me energy the way coffee does. I eat that food and I feel like I just drank a coffee. For lunch and dinner, sometimes I have the same thing for lunch and dinner. My regular go-to meal is a half pound of ground beef. Right now I'm eating 85% organic grass-fed ground beef. If you don't have the money to afford quality meat like that, you can just eat cheaper meat. It doesn't feel very different in my body. Though there are more preservatives and things in it, that's not really going to matter when it comes to weight loss and keeping it off or the longevity of your diet. But right now I eat 85% organic grass-fed ground beef. I'll throw in I'll do a side of fruit with that, either an apple or some pineapple or some dates or maybe some blueberries or some raspberries. Again, I'll cook the beef in either organic grass-fed butter or ghee. I typically don't cook in oils, but sometimes I do. But very rarely. If it's too much of an inconvenience to get ghee or tallow or quality butter, then I'll cook in oil. I'm careful with oil because there's just so many calories in oil for so little nutrient value. So, and I prefer to get my nutrients from animal products whenever I can versus from seeds. I want as many animal products as possible because it makes me feel good when I eat them. Eating animals and animal products literally gives me energy the way that coffee does. And it feels really fantastic for me. And again, this is something that I learned after years of working on having a healthy relationship with food. I'll throw in about a full onion, and I'll saute the onion in the butter or the ghee or sometimes the oil, cook the beef in there. About half the time I'll throw in a cup of rice. So I do get carbs from rice as well, but most of my carbs come from fruit. I eat that meal at least once a day. About half the time I eat that meal twice per day. So that might be my lunch and my dinner. Or I'll substitute the beef for chicken when chicken is easier, or I'll go out to eat. When I go out to eat, I typically just get a meat, so either chicken or steak, with a side of fruit whenever I can. Some places don't have fruit. When they don't, I get a side of rice, and I might get a side of vegetables. But I typically don't cook vegetables at home. I might get asparagus or broccoli or mixed seasonal vegetables at a restaurant. But that's really my entire diet. That's my entire diet. If I'm out with friends and it's an inconvenience for me to eat those foods, I'll eat whatever is convenient. I might grab a protein bar on the way to or from the gym if it's more convenient than me cooking something or than me eating a snack at home. I might eat Chick-fil-A on the way back from a work meeting when it's too inconvenient and too timely for me to go home and to cook one of those meals. I'm going to do an entire podcast on how I really efficiently meal prep and how I bust out these meals in 6 or 7 minutes at a time. So stay tuned for that if you're someone that's struggling with the time consumption of meal prepping. But just know you can find the meals for you that work for your budget, that work for your dietary preferences, that work for the foods that actually give you energy. And there is a world where you don't have to be on a fad diet anymore. I'm not on a diet. That's the craziest thing to say. Had anyone ever told me 5 years ago that there would be a point when I wasn't on a diet, it would have been like a sick joke. I couldn't imagine it. I'm not on a diet. And I look forward to every single meal that I eat. And after I eat, I smile and go, wow, that feels really fucking good. And that tasted really good. And that was easy to make. And I feel really good about eating that. And there are times when I eat unhealthy things and I go, oh, I kind of feel like shit. I ate too much Chick-fil-A. I feel like shit. That's fine. And then I just get over it. I might be a little tired. And I wake up the next day and I'm just, let me get my Greek yogurt bowl with my fruit and my honey. Let me get my ground beef, maybe with some rice and some more fruit. And my onion, and then dinner, let me get some chicken. I'm just right back. It doesn't bleed into different days. I'm not on a diet. You don't have to be on a diet forever. You maybe don't even have to be on a diet right now if you just look for ways to make the foods that you eat right now a little lower calorie or a little healthier or a little more conducive to whatever goal you're working towards. There is a world where you don't have to be on a diet, but you definitely don't have to be on a diet forever. Don't be afraid to try any of these diets. Don't be afraid to try the chicken and rice diet or OMAD or going gluten-free or intermittent fasting, which if you were to try one thing, intermittent fasting is probably the thing that most people are doing that they are seeing sustainable success with. So I would try that over everything else, or keto. But don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to adjust. Don't be afraid to fail. Trust yourself. Trust yourself. If you made it to the end of the episode, I greatly appreciate it. If you would leave me a review, it would mean the world on Spotify or Apple. Leave me an honest review on what you think of these podcasts. And these are just unscripted, one-take podcasts. There's no editing. I've been talking for 28 minutes and 45 seconds with no notes. I'm just going totally off the dome and trying to share this knowledge that I gathered the hard way so that you don't have to go through all the hard shit that I had to put myself through to learn these things. And I wish this podcast existed 5 years ago for me to listen to so badly. So badly, I wish I had access to this podcast. If you feel the same way, and if this is helping you at all with food or your relationship with food or losing weight or sustaining your weight loss, please leave a review because it helps other people find the podcast. And it would also just mean the world to me. Have a great rest of your week. We will see you next Wednesday.